Coming up.
There goes another green screen leg.
Yes, Skippy, yes!
We should start calling her Heart Plus Uplift.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to the CGS channel, where today we're back ranking Terraria.
In this mini-series, I listen, analyse and rank the Vanilla Calamity mod soundtracks. The 39 OSTs will be separated across 4 videos, each with a different theme, and this one focusing on the town themes and evil biomes. As this is episode 3. We are back after a week off as I played Ultra Kill instead, but let's not waste any time as we reopen our custom tier list. And today we are going to be ranking 10 tracks, one more than the previous 2 episodes, and as usual, most of these tracks for today are composed by the one and only Heart Plus Up, excluding a couple that we'll get onto later. But before that, let's begin with our first track for today, and probably the most nostalgic one for me, and that is Haven in the Sunlight, theme of the town day. Let's go! The background ambience, which is mainly a saw pad, plays a very important role over the course of this whole track. This harmonic bed, based in C major, is so comforting. Heart Plus Up cleverly uses notes such as C, E, G, B, D, which makes up that C major chord to enroll a smooth and homely sensation. But then, towards the end of the bar, there's a hint of incompletion and upcoming hurdles that must be cleared through the suspended second during the E minor transition. And I think that could represent your journey in game too, as Terraria is a sandbox game. Even though you can still defeat the hardest boss and obtain all the best weapons and accessories, there's always more to do, there's always more to add to your home, to your town. This is one of my favourite melodies, not just in this mod, but in any game or mod that I have ever ranked on the channel. It uses really similar techniques and progressions to what I deeply analysed last episode in Waves, theme of the ocean rain, by going, hang on, let me just replay it. 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2. These similar techniques are the repetition of B major, being a 2 to give a sense of similarity and recognition, which will add to the cosy and homey feel of this track, the smooth single note progressions, and finally the positive correlation of them. And all that together creates a wonderful and memorable melody that you and the little community that you have built in-game can always jam to. Yet, it still gets better later in this episode, as it gets expanded upon perfectly. So make sure you watch all the way through the video, as you will not want to miss that. I've got to talk about this piano solo too. This expands on the 12/8 time signature introduced just previously in essentially a 2-5-1 arpeggiating sequence based in C major. Also, that aforementioned saw pad melody now becomes an embedded pedal point. Hey, pretty decent loop as well. I think that is important for a track like this, as you're more likely to spend a while in the town, so I'm glad Heart Plus Up took some more notice for it with this one. In conclusion, I cannot get over that rolling piano. It was so elegant. I can tell she focused on shaping a clearer dynamic to make the world feel more alive, especially when you are in and around other NPCs during this track playing. And the use of very subtle textures, almost merging within the background pads, such as the cymbal and even the violin, which is my favourite, just added to the snug and intimate atmosphere. And for that reason, we are starting off today with a high A tier. As the sun sets and the moon rises, that can only mean one thing. It is time for Moonlit Haven, theme of the town night. Let's go. Piano solo motif straight away from its day counterpart, but now just slowed down slightly through a subtle use of fermenter, which is when notes or keys are held down slightly longer than its normal duration. And that creates a more relaxed setting, similarly to the normal night theme, where Heart Plus Up uses lower octaves to wind down the day. I've just remembered as well, Laser the Sky uses an EGBD progression in its opening, whereas this, Moonlit Haven, uses an EGFB, so definitely some melodic resemblance and similarities and inspiration taken from that. Wow, there is so much emotional depth being portrayed here, yet with such a simple melody. Alternating between chords and keys on each bar loop, even going as high as E flat major, is truly breathtaking. It was also a really smart decision to have this in a 12/8 signature to allow more time and therefore a larger spacing between the notes. Exact leitmotif replica of the piano from the last track, but now just with less textures. In fact, the piano is the only texture, with the addition of the chords such as the F minor 7 that we just heard there truly expresses tranquility and maybe even a bit of solitude. Little do you know, in Terraria, there is always an evil presence watching you. In conclusion, I'll say it before and I'll say it again now, Heart Plus Up has an artistic gift where she can organise a melody that not only perfectly resembles that theme, but also immerses you so it feels like you're actually in the game yourself and the feelings that you physically feel are connected with the Terrarian. I think she also did a perfect job with the time signatures. After the 12/8 midsection, Haven in the Sunlight returns to a more traditional 4/4, but this night variant switches to a compound dupe play of 6/8 to preserve the lullaby sensation. This is the sort of track that I can look back on in 5 or so years down the line and be filled with nothing but happy and amazing memories. And for that reason, I'm going to be placing it alongside its predecessor near the top of A tier. Next up, we have Workshop Theme Tier 1, followed by Workshop Theme Tier 2. There are actually 6 different themes in total, however, the 4 not included in this list can only be heard in hard mode, and if we think back to the very beginning of this series, I stated that the only tracks featured in this list are from pre-hard mode, as that is what I've just completed in my Calamity playthrough series. But I believe all the tracks within this theme are quite similar, so for the next 2, I'll focus more on comparing them and analysing the changes between them. So let's start off with the Tier 1 theme called Metal, Wood and Fire. Let's go! Straight away, starting off with some pizzicato strings, which, if you don't remember from the last episode, is when you pluck these strings with your fingers instead of using a bow. Oh, by the way, I believe these workshop themes are played in your main base or home when there aren't NPCs living around you, as that would classify it as a town. However, I might have got that wrong, so if I have, feel free to correct me in the comments. Nice introduction of the lead, but with the overall lack of textures, it was quite anticlimactic, and I'm not even saying that because I know it gets expanded upon later, but it genuinely does feel like something is missing, as if this is the early foundations, the beta of its finalised product. But I'll talk about it more when it comes up in Tier 2 of this theme, and how in my opinion, it could be improved. Long dragged out piano note before it decrescendos, leaving the same wooden hits as Scorched to Dust, the desert theme, which by the way I'm still pretty positive is a cage on drum. Also, Heart Plus Up has been on it today regarding the loops. In conclusion, I think the use of more simple and basic textures such as the piano and at the end the wooden hits showcases your humble beginnings of your playthrough really well. And I also did like the use of modal shifts being used for storytelling through blending the major and minor keys. And although it did lack in the harmonic motion department, which I can only assume was a deliberate decision, it still represented a grand beginning of an exciting and thrilling journey up ahead, which in my eyes is deserving of B tier. And now it is time for Theme of the Workshop Tier 2, which goes by the name of The Sky and the Depths. Spoiler alert, I'm very excited, as I like this one even more. So let's go. Almost instantly, we can see or hear the leitmotif and how it's been expanded upon with a shimmering ambient synth. Identical bar of FGAC being used here, which isn't a typical chord progression that you would hear. However, the F major ascending figure that this is part of is used a fair bit in some love songs due to its powerful nature, such as All of Me by John Legend. Adele, Someone Like You, I believe has a similar progression here too. Yeah. So I like the unique spin that Heart Plus Up has put on here. The previous tier 1 version of this track, I mentioned how this sequence felt a little empty and anticlimactic, yet here in the tier 2 version, the rhythm is much tighter and this issue is completely erased. If you've been watching the channel and my music reactions for a little while now, you remember the texture bar that I introduced and talked about in the Ultra Kill finals, which I'd highly recommend watching that video by the way, as I personally believe it is my best music reaction video that I have ever done, card right here. But if we reintroduce the bar, this gets filled up as the melody becomes more fulfilled, often through adding more textures. However, different textures will fill this bar up more, generally depending on how heavy or distorted they are. Also, the yellow line is exactly where you want to be in the ideal world, so your brain connects with the track better. Also, if you go too far over the yellow line, that is when the melody becomes too cluttered and therefore overwhelming. In tier 1, the piano was based in D minor, which is a relaxing and casual chord. You can even say it's a little nonchalant, as it works well as a more mid or background texture due to it not popping out so much. However, it was used as a foreground texture, and with a lack of a clear hook, there was no real weight to the melody, therefore coming up short on the texture bar. Now in tier 2, the triplet phrasing is a lot more prominent as it's based in F major, which then allows a wider use of fermenter to fill in the empty gaps left behind in the melody. The track also gets lifted through a couple of added syncopated accents, which overall makes this arrangement feel more accomplished, with the texture bar almost hitting the perfect sweet spot. And I say almost because one or two more textures would be perfect in my opinion. Maybe a high-pitched tom drum, or possibly even those glorious Calamity bells to add a little bit of sharp dissonance. In conclusion, I would assume in the future themes, more textures get introduced to resonate with the added complication that you face within your world, and also within your base if you decide to go out of your way to keep on improving it over time. And if that is the case, when I hear it in game, I'm really looking forward to seeing how this is expanded upon in tiers 3, 4, 5 and 6. The sky and the depths evoked a conceptual fabrication whilst uncovering the possibilities within the realms of Terraria Calamity. I really like this, so I'll place it a bit higher up in B tier. That was a long analysis, so let's clear our heads a bit now with comment of the week. Firstly, I just want to say a quick thank you as we've now hit 9,000 subscribers, meaning we are less than 1,000 away from hitting that elusive 5 digits. So if you haven't already made yourself part of this community and you like what you're watching, please do press that big red beautiful button down below so you don't miss any future uploads. But now for comment of the week. There were a lot of close runners-up, such as Trey's weekly donation, Eternium's praising my intros, BRD5964 speaking facts, DSS and Redwake for some incredible Ultra Kill tips, and Jungle Bogs for it being his birthday. But everyone, give Random Vids O2XT a round of applause for winning this week by saying, "You're amazing, your vids are so funny with lots of good reactions, I've never seen this good of a YouTuber, have an amazing life. Please put my comment in a vid, I'll be so happy." I don't usually give comment of the week to people who specifically ask for it, however, this comment was so nice, I'll make an exception this one time, so congratulations. And as usual, if you want to have a chance to be featured as comment of the week for next week's video, where I return to the deepest layers of Ultra Kill hell in layer 6 this time, all you have to do is subscribe and comment down below. Now that is done, it is time for us to enter the evil biome section of this series, starting off with the one I remember the best, Writhing Shadows. Theme of the corruption. Let's go. I do not remember that disgusting distortion. It feels like the Eater of Worlds is crawling up my bum. That was not appropriate, was it? I'm sorry.
Disgusting!
This is the textbook definition of eerie. The low choir oozes an unbelievable amount of dread and regret. Yet now this high-pitched bass synth completely contradicts that. It represents a unnerving and disturbing beauty, reminding you that this land wasn't always like this and it can be undone, while still contributing to a psychedelic ambience. See, this is what I love about these music reactions. I'm able to appreciate the music in a whole different way when I'm truly able to focus on it. As before, I never realised the harmony shifts to an even higher pitch whilst reintroducing the choir from the beginning. This juxtaposition to me illustrates the ever-rising intensity of the evil biomes as they continue to spread and slowly take over your entire world, and how time is running out. Maybe I'm reading too much into this, but I have so much passion for it, I can't help but feel that the choir returns with motivic unity, reminding the listener of the track's roots, which indicates to the player you need to find the root of the evil, where it started spreading, to eliminate it. I feel like here it backs my point up. Oh my god, this is insane. There's these very minute bell-like pluck synths which coincide with a Serenity evolving pad at around 5 kHz to mark a rewarding approval, as if I've just cracked a code and figured out the meaning. Oh, never mind. Holy! I did not appreciate how phenomenal this is. You know what, maybe my whole world getting corrupted isn't such a bad thing anymore. In conclusion, that ending sequence was the best chord progression I've heard since DM Dekuru. In fact, I'd even go as far to say as this rivals some of his masterpieces. I've also got to give a shout out to the heavy, thumping kick drums which elevated the sinister agitation. But overall, this was stupendous. Writhing Shadows, get yourself into S tier. Wow, that was insanity. Oh, I love Terraria. Let's hope those feelings can continue with a track that I don't actually remember off the top of my head, which is called Between the Shadows, theme of the corruption underground. It's time to refresh ourselves. Let's go. Super low rumbling bass. I don't know about you, but I am absolutely terrified, which I guess is a good thing within the context of the level. So this, from what I remember, is a motif from the Eater of Worlds theme, which we will be hearing in the next and final episode, but this boss is obviously very heavily related to the underground corruption, and it's even in the artwork here. Motif from the standard corruption theme now, but in a 6/8 compound duplay meter, meaning you have two groups of 3/8 notes, and that illustrates a more unstable legato sentiment. Whoops! Oh my god, what just happened? Oh, there's another hole in my wall. Let's go. But does that really matter? Because the sheer potency of that symbol blew me away. Yes, it probably does matter actually. But going back to that motif, it uses the same ACD or 134 progression, but now in a much slower BPM. Writhing Shadows had around 120, whereas this has almost half of it, as well as delayed attacks, indicating that this biome slowly creeps up and eats you from behind. I'm gonna have to edit that out. Whoa! I'm ascending out of my grave! This is quite Baroque style with the broken chord voicing. But I believe it's been ran through a stereo delay to give it that echoey atmosphere to represent the vast corridors and set the scene of the underground corruption. And by the way, when I say Baroque style, I mean people like Johann Sebastian Bach, who is one of the goats of classical composition. What? What? English? How on earth have we gone from deadly choir to sympathetic and elegant suspended F chords? Oh, I really like that. It was almost like a jab where you got led into a false sense of security before creating dissonance with the lower tone, acting as a reminder that this isn't Dreamland, this isn't your home place, this is still an evil biome, and if you get too comfortable, you will be punished. Also, that loop was just meh. In conclusion, I am absolutely dumbfounded and lost for words after that. I think this track excels as there was minimal percussion being used, which then opened up more room for abstract textures such as the ghostly choirs, bonkers drum beat. I didn't even get a chance to talk about the alternation between the toms and hi-hats. But overall, it served the atmosphere of this biome so well, and if I talk about it anymore, I might explode. So let's just go straight to the ranking, which will be very top of A tier. It's not quite S tier, as it did take like over a minute to just get into the swing of things. The build-up before the first drop was just a little too dragged out in my opinion.
Oh no!
Well, I just went for a quick toilet break, and guess what I just found as I came back in? There goes another green screen leg. Guess I can add it to the collection. Well, that was tragic. What did you think of it, Diesel? By the way, if you want to see more Diesel, you can join my Discord, link in the description, and get the daily dose of Diesel ping, where I put up a photo every day of him. But for our 7th track today, we transition to the other evil biome, being the Crimson theme, Clotted Lands. If you didn't know, in my Calamity playthrough series, my world is corruption, and although I did build an artificial Crimson to get some flesh box for a build, I built it in the sky so the space theme was playing. Meaning, this Crimson theme will be a first time reaction, and I'm very excited. Also, this is the first track in this series that wasn't made by Heart Plus Up, as Clotted Lands was composed by Skippy Z. Is it Skippy Z or Skippy Zai? You might need to let me know in the comments. But anyway, huge shout out to them, and let's go. Sub-bass layering acting as the heartbeat pulsation. Synthesized bass with a snippet amp simulator distortion, reminding me a bit of the Risk of Rain 2 tracks actually. For example, you're going to need a bigger ukulele, but just less electronic and more meaty. Meticulous use of the riser effect there to build a bit of suspension before the drop, and now a whole barrage of granular textures enter, which are tiny samples of music only a few milliseconds in length, and that, alongside some sharp yet off-kilter percussion, really makes you weary of your surroundings. A flute! Yes, Skippy, yes! Just that proves to me that they are a very experienced and knowledgeable composer. After what? About a minute and 10-ish of dark and sinister textures both in the foreground and background, I was hoping for the finale we would have a contrasting lighter texture introduced. For me, when I think of a lighter texture, instantly my mind goes to the harp. That is partially because I have a bias towards it, but anyway, that would not work here, as the harp evokes an angelic purity, which is obviously the complete opposite to the Crimson. It is also not as versatile, with the increased BPM being a larger instrument with strings, and that is why the flute is the perfect answer here. It momentarily takes you away from the evil and reminds me a bit of that one song by Howard Shore from The Lord of the Rings. I don't remember the actual name of the track though. The Breaking of the Fellowship. I just looked it up, but there, a solitary flute enters after lots of low, droning strings, which is another prime example of beauty being introduced over dread. If before betrayed the climactic battle, the final push for destiny, the delayering and decrescendo of the flute feels like you've now lost the war. You've become overwhelmed by the Crimson's unmerciful and relentless decay. In conclusion, I really appreciated how Skippy used different elements to make the track and therefore biome feel alive, as if the Crimson is a living, breathing organism. Which I guess in some way it kinda is. One more thing I noticed was there were minimal tonal anchoring, helping to present the unstable sensation within this biome. So overall, strong first impressions from my side, and although I don't believe it to be as good as the Corruption themes, I still think that this is worthy of A tier. It is now time for the second of 3 tracks involved with Skippy, and this one might have the coolest name in the entire series. That is Bloodstained Terror, theme of the Underground Crimson. With a name as sinister as that, I'm expecting big things. Let's go. Say it with me, everyone. This is eerie. I do like the background low register pad rooted in around A, which really builds tension. Yet the slower tempo enables the foreground ambient to decay naturally, which keeps the listener waiting for a potential drop and shows that the Crimson is in full control. Great use of layered accompaniment, which involves introducing new musical textures over a more simple bass ostinato that continues to repeat, such as the off-kilter hits of the taiko drum, which I assume is being used here to build up to a grand climatic drop. Here we go! Or here we don't go, is that it? Definitely some decent chord progression used, hinting at a bit more intensity, but I need more harmonic flexibility. Although it wouldn't be an original idea, again, the flute would save the day. Even just a time signature change away from 4/4 would be something. Come on. Yes? Is that it? Okay, I'm gonna be real. You know I always give my honest thoughts and feelings with these videos, but for me, it just doesn't do enough. In conclusion, I think Skippy showcased the otherworldly presence of the underground Crimson quite well. The introduction of the taiko drum was brilliant for the build-up, as it drew the attention of the ears to a more grounded and primal sentiment, although it would have worked better just leaving it as that, or maybe for the bridge after, rather than making it a core part of the melody. But other than that, I don't really have too much else to say, as it was too repetitive, which is a little disappointing, especially after the epic highs of its surface variant. So for that reason, and please don't kill me in the comments, I'm going to place this into high D tier. And you know what we've got to do for every track that gets placed into this tier. On a more positive note, the two remaining tracks today I know very well and are both certified bangers. Starting off with Serenity, which is the theme of the Lantern Festival. If you've never played Terraria before, this plays on the night after you've just defeated a new boss or event for the first time, and it is incredibly emotional. So sit back, relax, grab a tissue, as we say, let's go. There is such an incomprehensible elegance on the piano at around B3-ish. Also, I should probably mention, one of the fondest and funniest memories I have of this track was mid-recording in I Got Trolled by My Own Fans, where I accidentally muted my mic for a bit, so this happened.
Embarrassing!
I can tell there was so much care put into every single one of these chords, particularly the main D major 7. But just you wait for the pluck string introduction. Oh, a bit of reverberation on it as well is so good. I somehow already feel nostalgic for this track, despite only being, what, 3-4 months since I last heard it? But you think, okay, well this bass melody is 10 out of 10, but the texture bar is still a little empty, so what can we add to help elevate it? Well, if we want to layer the textures in over time through layered accompaniment, it is recommended that you start from the background with something like the ambience. And now that we've got the ambience in place, we can start thinking about coming a little bit further forward and adding something like a drum pattern. But it gets even better, as now we are ready to reintroduce the absolutely glorious synthetic strings. Heart plus up, you are incredible! I don't know exactly what that string is, as it's digitally processed, which makes identifying it a whole lot harder, no matter what level of music knowledge you have. Key modulation! We've raised the tonal centre from the C major to D major, and now to E major! Only Heart plus up could uplift this cinematic experience even more, both physically and emotionally. We should start calling her Heart plus Uplift. Only CGS could ruin this cinematic experience. In conclusion, the way the textures were gradually layered in was absolutely sublime. Even though there weren't actually that many, peaking at just 4, every single one represented a new, unfound emotion, and it all came together in perfect harmony, just like the lanterns this track was based around in the first place. I feel like this is the sort of OST that has a deeply emotional and personal connection with a lot of different people. the orchestration built up over time with an expansive and dreamy self-reflection, illustrating a hazy but happy past memory, and this felt like a true celebration of life, and that is such a powerful sentiment. I genuinely think this is one of the only tracks in any video game I have ever played where I've actively gone out of my way to put my mouse and keyboard down just to appreciate the serene beauty before my very eyes and ears. The Lantern Festival is an easy S-tier track and a strong contender for the GOAT. The bangers do not stop there, as our final track for today inflates the celebration sensation both literally and metaphorically, if you think about inflating the balloons. I really thought I was onto something there. Remember that melody that I talked about in the very first track from today, Haven in the Sunlight, that gets perfectly expanded upon later in this video? Well, this is it. Celebration Haven, theme of the town party. I can guarantee you'll be vibing to this track along with me, so let's go. And I'm just going to say, I'm just going to put it out there, this first drop is one of the best in any video game ever. Full stop. Looks like someone is throwing a party. Well, today that is me. So ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, get ready to celebrate. This track makes you do crazy things. Now we get ready for the Celesta style synth. Do 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 do. With a little bit of pitch bending, and whoa, what was that? I actually have no idea. Some sort of modulated and syncopated woodwind instrument, maybe? How Harpless Up managed to think of that, I have no clue, but it works, so it doesn't matter. I'm sorry, I'm way too hyper right now. I think here is probably the clearest motif use from the Town Day theme with the diatonic major progression, but the vibes of this party is just immaculate. Hang on, let me just put this track into S tier, as I will not need to be thinking about that later. The loop admittedly wasn't the best, as the key change was too far and sudden, jumping from G major to D. But we're not going to the conclusion yet, as I'm listening to this drop one more time. If you love the music, make sure you give this video a like, as it helps me out a ton in the algorithm, especially as I'm still a small channel. But I'm going to stop yapping now, so we can listen to this heavenly masterpiece one final time. Let's go! Oh, it's so good. In conclusion, in a few months, I turn 21, I'm throwing a big party, you're all invited, as long as you're subscribed, and I'm playing this on repeat. I adored the main jazzy / folk pop riff and how catchy it was. I adored the wacky yet wonderful synths. I adored the time signature mix of 6/8 and 3/4. Can you tell I like this track? When I made this tier list a little while back, I purposely put this OST at the end of the episode to guarantee nothing but positive and cheerful vibes, both for me but also for you watching too. And hopefully that carries on for the rest of your day. And with that, the celebration draws to a close along with this video. In 2 weeks' time, the fourth and final episode will be out, where I not only listen, analyse and rank the remaining 11 tracks relating to bosses and events, but I'll also be ranking all the tracks in S tier and declaring the GOAT Vanilla Terraria Calamity Music Mod OST. But before that, like I mentioned earlier, I'll be diving headfirst down into the heresy hell of Ultra Kill next Sunday, which I'm really excited for, and I hope you are too. But thank you so much for watching it all the way to the end of this video. You are a real one, and for now, good night.